All right, prop stars here. Buff is taking the day off, doing some family things. We got Jeffrey Schneider here as a guest appearance, fitting us in today. We'll be bouncing around, talking combine talk, NFL talk, NBA talk. Just had a great conversation about MLB, challenging balls and strikes. Let's jump right into it. Combine, Jeremiah Love running a 4.3640.
I do want to appreciate you saying fitting you in. Like I have just this jam-packed day full of things that I have to do, that I've somehow carved out an hour of my time to be able to sit here and talk sports with one of my best friends. I think it's okay. I think we'll probably figure this out.
Between Fox Sports and ESPN, you fit in, prop star.
Yeah. I appreciate the love there. No pun intended. But I mean, Jeremiah Love, how high does he go? I think the combine is what the combine always is. It's guys who are really good in underwear and able to trot out there. And I do think we've gotten to a point now where these times are insane. Like the fact that you have guys who are running sub fours, multiple, 10 this year ran sub four. I think is just a testament to how great the athlete has become in today's modern sport. How high do you take Jeremiah Love, and where do you think he fits in this?
So I was saying, as a Giant fan, I absolutely don't want to go running back with a top 5 pick. But now you start watching his highlights, and you just start seeing how the Super Bowl went with Kenneth Walker, which I don't know why. I feel like they look a little similar, like running style, things like that. And I mean, if that's going to be the final piece of the puzzle, a lot of people think that he won't fall as far to the Chiefs. Everyone's saying Chiefs right now just because, it just seems like they've been struggling at running back over the next couple of last years. But it's a tricky situation. I think that you usually don't want to. I don't know. This draft is kind of interesting, right? Let's say that Mendoza goes 1, and then you don't really want to waste a pick on a safety, linebacker, or running back early on. But those seem like those are the best positions in the draft, right? So do you just go get the best player in the draft? I'm hearing Sonny Styles, best combine in the history. And then I'm watching, and then I just go look at his stats. He had 1 sack. Now we all know, we don't know. Yeah. Supposedly he was a lot in coverage, a lot of quarterback spy stuff, and they didn't have a lot of meaningful games. So I don't know how many, was he on the field 50% of the time? Are they just always preserving him? But that wasn't a guy that was a dog on the field, right? He's a dog in the combine. And yeah, he's going to chase down a guy like Lamar Jackson for you. Or like as a Giant fan, do you want to roll out Burns and Abdul Carter and get a guy like Sonny Styles out there that can kind of be a hybrid? I mean, he's 6'4", 250 pounds, runs a 4.40. Please, I'm not saying I don't want him, but it is kind of tricky to go like an outside linebacker. He's not really an edge rusher, right? Because I don't think I don't know.
Yeah, he's kind of a hybrid. It's kind of like this this tight end kid from Oregon as well too, Sadiq or whatever, who ran a time off the charts as well. If I'm the Giants though, and I don't know where your head's at, but I'm looking at defense. I think this is Harbaugh's first pick. I think it's either offensive line or it's defense. You gotta like basically put your flag down and say this is what we're gonna be. And I don't think they're going to go Jeremiah Love. I think they got Scattaboo. I think another scat back is a dime a dozen. You can pay him a minimum wage and, let him go out there and run their butt off for 2 years and get all the work that you want out of them. As much as it sucks to say, that's where the running back position kind of is nowadays. So.
No, I know. Yesterday morning, when one of our loyal listeners, Sean Overman's like, man, you can't go running back this early, right? I'm like, no way. I would be so discouraged. But now you just start looking and you're like, I don't know if I want to go safety that early, but either way, I mean, another guy that's kind of moving up the charts a little bit is Ty Simpson. And this was a guy that I thought coming into the year was going to have a big year just because of, how the head coach is very quarterback friendly, all the weapons they had. And he did not light up the scoreboard. Like watching that Alabama offense at times, you were just like, man, does not look great. Right.
Yeah. You're even watching them Alabama Auburn, for their lives to get in, and it's just
they can't move the ball.
No,
and it's kind of crazy, right? Because the one thing I like about Ty Simpson, I mean, he was the backup. I mean, he was the scout quarterback to Bryce Young. I mean, the guy's been there for 5 years. So think about all the practice. He's on the practice squad having to go against all these defenders every year that are in the NFL, right? So we
Yeah.
know he's ready. And that's why I was so convinced this year. I'm like, this guy's going to be surgical. And, the thing is that physically he doesn't light up the charts, right? So that also worries me. You couldn't move the ball with all those weapons. You've been on that team. I'm not going to say in that system because Kalen DeBoer hasn't been there that long, but and then you really just didn't light it up, even though you've had, they pretty much rolled out the red carpet for you,
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you see this happen a lot of times too, where guys finally get their shot. Now, a guy who got a shot who did very well was Jacob Coker. A guy who played for Alabama many years ago, was Jameis Winston's backup at Florida State at one time, transferred out, wins a national championship. You look at a guy like Greg McElroy, right, who had success at Alabama as well too. These guys barely sniff the NFL.
Yeah.
Just because you're in a good situation surrounded by a shitload of talent doesn't mean that, all of a sudden you're going to go in and light up the league. Kyle Trask, for instance, was a backup his entire career, and then finally comes in, gets a shot, ends up playing well, right? Heisman hopeful for the University of Florida. Now on that team, he had tons of weapons, Kyle Pitts included, and so on and so forth. But he gets out there and he can't sniff it. Baker Mayfield gets traded in. He never even gets off a second string from being under Tom Brady. So I just think we see this happen a lot. I don't know about Ty Simpson. I don't know how well he translates. His measurables are what? He's not the tallest guy, doesn't have the best arm strength. Seems that his processing hasn't been elite enough to be able to push Alabama from where they are. So to me, it's a stay away thing. I think he has a career backup maybe written all over him, but
it has that feel to it. I'm shocked that everyone's so hyped on him, and everyone's shocked he had such a great combine and he's going to interview great. He's a great guy. And I'm hearing his dad's been a coach forever. His dad was always in the stands with his brother and all this stuff. And then I'm watching the Alabama. I'm like, why can't you guys move the ball?
Sure.
Hey, who's the best? Wu-Tang? Wu-Tang asks.
Real quick about that. When you're out at the bar and it's late at night, all right, and there was a 10 that was there earlier, but she left, and now you're sitting there and you got some scraps, and you've had a few beers and you really need to go home with something. You're going to kind of convince yourself of, this is actually not a bad idea. I think that's kind of where we are with Ty Simpson. That just shows how weak this quarterback class is and how strong it's going to be next year. But I was surprised that some of these guys, decided to come back knowing that as well too. It seems like there's situations that are trying to be avoided and such. And so that's a very different and interesting thing, especially with NIL nowadays, that's coming and into the fold. What was the question from Wu-Tang? I apologize.
But really quick. So Ty Simpson, you're considered scraps. So Ty Simpson, the 16th pick to the New York Jets, take the scraps.
I mean, no, don't do it. Like Jets, do not do this. Like, don't go get Ty. Like, I think even Mendoza, people would tell you, is like not a traditional number one quarterback. Mendoza, I think, has tools, but I don't think you ever see him light it up. Now, you can say his leadership skills might be off the chart. He's that good of a human being, and he's able to be a leader of men to where maybe that pushes him over with intangibles. But I still don't think even Mendoza should be a number one pick. But this is the draft that we have, so it's.
Yeah, I will say this with Mendoza though: 6'5", 225, can make every throw to the far sidelines. And I don't
does run a little bit.
I don't think he had a lot of great weapons in Indiana, and that was a reason why. But it's kind of hard. 6'5", 225, can make every throw. Won the Heisman, went undefeated, and didn't really have that much speed at the wideout position where he could actually light it up. And I don't think that guy's going to be the first one into the gym, last one out kind of thing. Working on everything. But yeah, pound for pound, Wu-Tang asks, who do you think's the best player in the draft?
Pound for pound, who's the best player in the draft? Who will be the best pro, or who's the best, most talented? Because I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a nuanced question. I think Carnell Tate has a chance to be really good in the NFL. I think route running wise, I think hands wise, I think size wise. I always like guys who I've known since they were sophomores in high school because I've watched their recruiting stuff. And I've known he's a 5-star coming out, balling out, having Hartline as his wide receiver coach at Ohio State. You've seen the products that they've churned out of there the past few years. And that's actually one spot where, if I'm the Giants, do you think about that? right? Do you think about pairing and getting somebody who can be a game changer? Right now, you look at the division. Cowboys are going to have George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. You
Yeah.
have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. How do you
Yeah.
match that? Do you go get now you have Malik Neighbors? Can you go get Carnell Tate to where when Malik Neighbors gets hurt, all of a sudden you have a supplementary piece to walk in there, and it's not Wan'Dale Robinson that you're trying to be able to do. So I don't mind the Caleb Downs as at safety as well. I think that's a great call. There's a lot of Ohio State guys that are going to go in this top 10. It's crazy.
I
They're
know.
churning them out over there, man.
I don't know if I want the Giants to go safety in the first, in that early of a pick, but you know what? We have to shore up the secondary. And I do think the Giants could be one of those teams where they go from 3-14 to, battling for a playoff spot pretty quick.
Yeah.
And the Giants secondary for just a lot of years. We have such a good, with Corbin, with Burns and Abdul Carter, with Thibodeau and Lawrence and the boys, that defensive line is strong.
Yep.
So if you did add a Sonny Styles, just another just another freak that's going to be in that front seven, I wouldn't be mad at that. I am a little concerned with this with his stats. Now, the year before, I remember hearing all about Sonny Styles, and he had a better year like 2 years ago, stats wise, right? But just having a 6'4", 250-pound dude that could just chase people down, it's kind of cool to have that on the field.
Maybe you have a lot of those. If I were the Giants, I would look at a guy like Alex Anzalone, right? A guy who's a free agent linebacker coming off the Detroit Lions, who is a guy who's normally all over the field, a guy who can, lead your huddle, be your mic. I would look at a guy like that, a guy who's been there and done that before, to maybe lead these young guys on defense, who you're not going to have to break the absolute bank on or spend a top 5 draft pick on.
No, yeah, that's a good point. I do think that the Carnell Tate, his 40 time is getting a little overblown, right? But
yeah, it's a 4-5. It's whatever.
Yeah, and him being known as a deep threat. But I love everything he does. He seems strong. But how last year they were saying the running back depth was great, and we actually kind of saw that in the NFL, right? Literally guys going 3rd and 4th round making immediate impacts in the NFL. They're saying this year that's how it is for receiver. So do you want to go receiver that early when you could just go get someone? Think about it. I don't really know right now. But think about the running backs that went early last year and the running backs that went in the 3rd and 4th round. Now you watch them in the NFL, very little difference, right? The Travion Hendersons, the Scadaboos, and then you have who went early last year?
Omarion Hampton.
Yep. Which obviously, if you watch Hampton, don't look at his stats. Just watch him play. Yeah, Genty. So there you go, right? So Genty and Hampton, and then you got Scadaboo, Travion. Not that big of a gap, right? Give me Travion all day later on than Omarion Hampton in the 1st round. But I will say this, Hampton's a beast. He looks great, looks the part, and if he stays healthy, he'll be good.
And we talked about this too. If you're looking at dynasty leagues or you're looking ahead and you're thinking about a Mike McDaniel offense and what do they like to do, I think the sky's the limit for Omarion Hampton next year.
Yeah. Let's talk about a couple other teams that I think that are, quarterback deficient, like the Steelers, the Jets. What's Arizona going to do with Kyler Murray? The Dolphins. When you look at these teams, this is how much you appreciate when you get a quarterback that's just, he's worthy enough to be a playoff guy, be I said they shouldn't, that Brock Purdy shouldn't be paid that kind of money. But then you look at these teams that are so deficient at quarterback, they just need somebody there, right? Do you think Kyler Murray, for example, stays with it? Everyone's like, oh, Kyler Murray, Minnesota, that'd be so cool, so much fun watching him with all that talent at receiver. But do you think Kyler Murray stays at Arizona, or do you think he goes somewhere else?
Well, it's interesting, right? All those teams that you just named, right? You name them again. You said Dolphins, Cardinals, Steelers. Who is the other one?
Jets. And honestly, you could probably put the Vikings there and maybe even the Falcons there. Falcons look just from the media, that they're not backing Penix just yet,
Yeah, I mean, they still have Cousins on the roster. Obviously, the smoke of the Vikings of Anthony Richardson going there have been pretty good. I mean, it seems like where there's a lot of fire there, that Anthony Richardson will be traded to the Minnesota Vikings sometime on draft day at some point. So, or even before. The other ones are interesting because they're all first year head coaches, right? Like Miami's going to have Halfley. You're
Yeah.
going to get time there. You have Arizona with a first year head coach, and then now you have McCarthy going in Pittsburgh. So it seems like you're not going to fire the head coach after 1 year. So
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of leeway that says I can either ride this out with a guy that I have on my roster, whether that be a Quinn Ewers, whether that be, I think Jacoby Brissett. Is it still Jacoby Brissett over there in Arizona instead of Kyler Murray?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's re-signed for another year or not. I can see Kyler being on the move, though. The question is, what's the right fit for Kyler, and does Kyler actually love the game of football? I think Kyler loves.
He's 28, right? And it's just like,
It just seems like he's never loved it.
yeah, just never wanted to put the work into it, I think, because he's just been so blessed with physical talent. I was looking at Kyler Murray top 5 plays, and I mean, it is dynamic to watch. And he can literally make every throw on the field. But like you said, I don't know why that, like, you always say you don't love a short quarterback throwing to short receivers.
Yeah.
And that's always stuck with me because Kyler, my dad says the same thing. And Kyler can make every throw, but can he do it from the pocket, right? And can you make the easy plays? We all know you can make the great plays, but can you make the easy plays?
Can you edit yourself enough to just pick up 5 yards? Can you edit yourself enough to make a dump down? Can you edit yourself enough to not roll out, do a 360 like Tommy Castellanos, and then heave the ball 60 yards in the air straight into a DB's hand? So, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. I understand. But the reason I ask about does Kyler Murray love football is whatever situation he's going to go to is not going to be cushy like it was with the Cardinals, right? The Cardinals, you're the first pick. You're in there. Everybody's catering to you. You are the man. You're put on this pedestal. And I think it's just going to be really tough to wherever he goes next. And it's going to test his will and love for the sport when you are now, playing scout team, when you're, a second string, when, you're not getting first team reps all the time, when, those situations I think will test as well and be a real test of whether he loves the game of football or whether he loves the spotlight, and we know coming out, right? First round draft pick in MLB, first round draft pick in NFL. He chooses NFL. Is there any want or to go back in that instance? So I'm just not really sure.
You could take Kyler Murray's highlight reel right now, and it would blow away Tom Brady's 23-year highlight reel career, right?
Yeah.
We all agree on that. And I always said Tom Brady's top 50 plays are on 1st and 10. He's doing a 4-yard pass to Julian Edelman instead of taking a sack, or, you know what I mean? All these, it's all about, as a quarterback, it's a 4-quarter game, play by play. And I'll tell you this, if I'm Justin Jefferson, I definitely don't want Anthony Richardson as my quarterback. And I don't want Kyler Murray as my quarterback either.
Kyler Murray is more well, and listen,
I agree. I'd rather have Kyler Murray over Anthony Richardson 100%.
Now, did AR make a jump last year and just got unlucky? We didn't get a chance to see it because he got snapped with a rubber band on a pregame and lost his whole season. I don't know. Like maybe he could have. Odds are no, but I guess there's a possibility that it could have happened.
Also, are you okay with I was really hard on Dayball last year because Dayball was coaching for his career as a Giants head coach, and he anointed Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback in June or July. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why don't you have them fight for the job? Like, I don't think the Giants should give Jackson Dart the quarterback position. Let him and Winston play it out. Let let this new coaching staff get fresh eyeballs on it. Guess what? Who cares? Like, we are fighting for every position. Are you okay with that? Like, I'm okay with, let's just say somehow the Vikings go get a Malik Willis or a Kyler Murray. Hey, you and McCarthy, you guys are going to battle it out. May the best man win. And guess what? McCarthy might not win that job, and McCarthy still might be a good quarterback. Jackson Dart might not win that job. Winston might beat him out. And guess what? Jackson Dart still could be but you set a tone and you set a culture in the locker room. Like, hey, we're not giving anybody anything.
I see. To me, that's tough because when it comes to the Giants specifically, it's like you've anointed this guy as your quarterback of the future. McCarthy, there's still some stuff there of like we're not sure. One of the reasons that they preluded to Dayball getting fired is that you're putting the franchise out there running too much. So if that's your narrative and that's your story for why you didn't like some of the play calling, well, then how are you going to turn around and be like, actually, the guy's not good enough to start over Jameis Winston to start the year? And I think it would kill his confidence. JJ McCarthy, I feel like you could sit down and he'd be fine to sit down and kind of figure it out. When it comes to Jackson, I don't know if that's a thing. Now, if Jackson plays like absolute dog crap and is terrible the first few games, I could see Jackson being like, you know what, you're right. Maybe I need to sit down for a game or two, let Jameis take over for a second and kind of go from there. I still don't understand the Malik Willis hype. I think when Malik Willis took over for Jordan Love the few times that he has, and he has performed well, right? But like, what is Malik Willis really elite at? What is he good at? He's like an average runner, a below average passer. What exactly does he bring to the table?
I mean, he's won games as a backup quarterback. I think he's an above average runner. I think he's an above average runner. And I just think that
who do you compare him to as a runner, though?
Honestly, I like the Cam Newton in his prime. Kind of. I'm gonna look up stats really quick, but I'm gonna look up his size. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good.
Cam was a freak in terms of height, weight. Like Malik Willis is what? He's like 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah, he's 6'2", 225. Yeah. Yeah, but well, I was just saying more of like I've seen him kind of like have strong runs and not always just use like the. I mean, he's got. Let me see his 40. I mean, he's an above average. You said he was an average.
I think he's an average runner.
Also, last week we had Buff had this thing where fantasy points per drop back, and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are all like at 0.6, 0.7. Malik Willis is at 1.1 fantasy points per drop back. So he's got a strong arm and he's an above average runner.
I see. Listen, this is where we disagree, which is absolutely fine. I don't see it. I've seen Malik Willis like be fine managing games here and there and getting wins. I've never seen him light anybody up for
he runs a 4.5. He runs a 4.5 40. And I mean,
He ran a 4.5 40 out of the combine.
I mean, they're saying he ran a 4.37 at Auburn, but he never ran it in the combine. But the scouts are suggesting it was a 4.55. That's what he runs the 40.
Malik Willis, who went to Liberty.
Yes.
Okay. So 4.55, he ran at the combine. That was what, 4 years ago?
Yeah, he's in his prime. I'm not saying he's going to be a great quarterback, but these teams that, like, if you're, I would rather go give Malik Willis a shot that we've seen win games and have huge games in the NFL, right? Like, usually coming in the middle of the game and just carrying the Packers to victory. I would rather see a guy like that on Miami if you're trying to win games right now than a Quinn Ewers. But I see what you were saying. Roll Quinn Ewers out there and go 3-14 and, go get a draft pick and start building a team. But I could see Malik Willis kind of being one of those late bloomers.
I know you wanted to break down the AFC East. You want to get into that?
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's start with the top. New England Patriots.
Losing a lot of guys on defense. Free agency. Can Drake May repeat what he was in the regular season, or is he going to be what he is in the playoffs? The teams finally figure him out.
Let me say this. Let's go back to this really quick. I think I don't in the Super Bowl, right? Sam Darnold versus Drake May. 58 in the building, guys. Please like and subscribe. We appreciate it. I don't think Sam Darnold or Drake May were top 10 quarterbacks. Can we agree on that?
I don't think in the playoffs.
Yeah, just overall. I can name 10 quarterbacks better than both Sam Darnold and Drake May.
Not this year. I think Sam Darnold and Drake May were both top 10 this year.
Okay. I think that Drake May takes a step back. I think for some reason he caught a lot of people off guard with like some of these big runs he had.
Big
And
throws too. They pushed the ball down the field like more than almost anybody in the NFL. They were
yeah,
deep shot guys. Demario Douglas. I mean, they ran guys out there.
yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. They were talking about how great his deep ball accuracy was and things like that. I think that late in the season, though, and in the playoffs, you saw Drake May not be able to deliver consistently in the pocket, right? Just like, and I mean, some of the throws he did make, I mean, that the Texans, I mean, there's just a lot of things went his way. Yeah, I think we both agree, and we're not lighting the world on fire here and I think we're stating the obvious. They probably take a step back because most likely this team does not go back to the Super Bowl, right? You could still be kind of
Correct.
trending upwards. And if you're a Patriots fan, I'll tell you right now, you're going to be a wild card, and it's going to come down to the last game of the regular season. You probably take that, right? Because there's, yeah, they're not a super sexy, overly talented team. Vrabel, the leader of men kind of vibe. They caught a lot of breaks in the playoffs for their road to the Super Bowl. I think Drake May takes a step back.
I think it's going to be a very interesting and super important year for the way that their roster construction and their GM builds this team going forward. I thought they were great defensively, especially when you have Davis and Gonzalez out there. I think those are two good corners to be able to build on. I thought the line was good with Chason and Barrymore and all those guys. And yeah, I think they can still be good on defense. Absolutely. I would continue to add to that offensive line if I were them. Obviously, you want to protect Drake May. Obviously, you have your two-headed running back already that you have to go along right now with Ramondre and Henderson. What do they do with Stephon Diggs? I think Diggs is a free agent, I believe, right? I know him and Vrabel love each other, but
they said Diggs will most likely restructure his contract, like Sean says. And you got to run into the NFC West, right? So the Seahawks, the Niners, the Rams. Those are 3 games where last year it was the Commanders, the Giants, Eagles and Cowboys, right?
And also I know the NFC East played the NFC South as well. So you also had on their schedule the Patriots played the Saints, they played the Falcons, they played the Bucks, they played the Panthers. So there's that aspect as well too. I think it's like the second or third year in a row that whoever played the NFC South ended up making the Super Bowl in terms of as a division against division. So I do think the NFC East the NFC West might take a small step back as well too, because I just don't know if Seattle will be as strong with some of the free agents that they have. And can Sam Darnold repeat what he did as well too? So they might be a little bit down in the West, but we'll see what happens.
No, I agree. I think the Niners might take a step back too. That's a topic for a whole nother day, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I'll be interested to see if Drake May can. I don't want to put these crazy expectations like, oh, can he be another MVP candidate? Because that was a real crazy meteoric rise. I mean, he definitely showed hope in his rookie year, no doubt about that. But to be 1 or 2 votes away from an NFL MVP, it's crazy for me to say because and you did just remind me, like he made some amazing downfield throws. I've been pretty hard on Drake May, and I don't think it's unfair. I just think that Boston fans just piss me off so much.
It's really tough when they're winning. Like when they're good, it is.
It's just like the fucking ignorance of these fans. And I couldn't get one of them to admit, just like, oh man, you guys have had a pretty easy road. They're like, huh? I'm like, for fuck's sake, like we can't ever I've never had a Patriot fan just shoot it straight for once. It's just like, no, we're back to where Tom Brady was leading. I'm like, all right, guys, like you guys have played the Titans. I could just rip up you played the Saints when they had Spencer Rattler. Like we can go just on and on, whatever. But yeah, I'm interested to see if Drake May could just kind of be that guy. I was real skeptical of him coming out of college. A lot of his big games were against Norfolk State and all this kind of stuff. Every time he played a pretty good team, he wasn't amazing. And then they drafted him where they did, and he's been really good in the NFL. But now he's coming into this year as an MVP candidate, right? I mean, you missed it by 1 game. Let's just see if he can continue that. Next is the Bills.
And we always say this real quick too, just to put a bow on this, right? And one of the reasons where, if you listen to what I was saying about the Patriots to start the year, that they were going to win the division, that they were the sleeper team of the year, blah, blah, and so forth. Most of it has to do with Mike Vrabel. right? I think Vrabel is a
Yep.
hell of a coach. He's incredible, one of the best coaches in the NFL. What happens is that you come in and it's a culture shock, right? You just left what you've had if you were there on that team for the past few years. Vrabel comes in, you're 100% bought in, all in, right? Now you start to build that culture. You start to build that, that chemistry, that repertoire, whatever it is. But over time, that does start to fade away. So that shock that they had, that influx of energy and chutzpah, or whatever you want to call it, to go get it this year, will that translate to next year? With the same
Yeah.
guys, and how does that work as well too?
And also, like, the leader of men thing is so cool when, like, you're winning 3-point games, right?
For
And
sure.
you win them back to back. But when you start, and everyone's like Vrabel's sideline presence, which I agree, that's a big thing. And I've always been a fan of coaches that are just in complete control. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite, a little bit of a side story, is Bill Parcells, like one of my favorite coaches of all time. When Tony Romo dropped the snap, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Tony Romo dropped the snap versus Seattle and pretty much cost Dallas the game, Bill Parcells, right when it happened, went right to the defense and said, if we get a stop, we will get the ball back and we'll give Romo a shot. And what did Dallas do? They got to stop. And like, they didn't end up winning the game, but Bill Parcells wasn't going to go yell at Romo for dropping that's over.
It's over. We're on to the next.
Yep.
Control the controllables.
I always hated Wade Phillips was a guy that did this all the time. Every time the other team missed a field goal in the middle or beginning of the game or late in the game, it's not the last play of the game, he's jumping up and down like, yes, they missed a field goal. And then, you see guys like Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells, they're on to the next one. We can celebrate after the game, but right now it's just, anyways, I love that Vrabel sideline presence.
For sure.
And it's a big thing. But off to the, next to Bills, McDermott, you weren't a fan of him.
No.
It's kind of tricky to say he was unfairly fired because you saw this coming for a long time. And the Bills just decided, hey, we're just going to make a move now because McDermott didn't lose that game for us or that season for us. But this was something that was coming over time. And they just thought McDermott can't be the guy to take us to that supreme level. And we already think we have a guy that's right there in the waiting, right? If they're right or wrong, whatever. But you've been on this. I've heard you. I mean, I'm not gonna say unfairly or even emotionally because you have no emotional ties, but you have not been a fan of McDermott for a long time.
Yeah, I've probably pontificated a little bit too much on how much I dislike McDermott. And it probably wasn't even that fair, but it was more about the fact that they would get into these situations and then all of a sudden Joe Brady would get them down there play calling or whatever it was. And McDermott would all of a sudden just pump the brakes. Be like, okay, we're going to settle for a field goal here. And what would happen? You'd see the variance of field goal kickers that comes into play, especially when you're playing outdoors in Buffalo, that comes into play, whether it be the way that you mismanage game clock in certain situations every single year in the playoffs. How many times can we keep on doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? That is literally the definition of insanity. And so, yes, it used to always frustrate me. And then also the thing that you're supposed to hang your hat on is the defense. And the worst thing about Buffalo in the past few years has been their defense. So it'll be interesting to see. I thought that they should have gone after maybe somebody who had a little bit more experience in terms of coaching in the NFL to go alongside Joe Brady and have him and guide him through the different scenarios that he's going to be battling as a first-time head coach. But I don't mind the Jim Leonard hire either. A Wisconsin guy, was a thumper of a safety back in the day as well. It'll be interesting to see the way that kind of translates into how he manages that defense. I think they need to absolutely build that defense this offseason and kind of tool it to where it is. And also, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I don't love my head coaches calling plays offensively. So that'll be an interesting thing to try to navigate through as well. But at least now in these late game situations, we'll have somebody else like a Joe Brady who's going to have an opportunity to come in and, maybe make some different decisions here in the end.
I think as a Bills fan, though, you just love that chemistry that's going to just continue with Josh Allen. And we've just seen growth from Josh Allen.
Yep.
And I love how it's so crazy, right? Because watching him on Hard Knocks and you see how he's working on his mechanics, it's so easy to work on your mechanics and do everything in a vacuum, indoors. Nobody's yelling in practice. And he was so good at that. And then he literally just directly translated that to the game. It's just crazy to think because when you're working on your mechanics, it's so hard to do it when the snow's popping in your face. You have all these guys work coming at you. It was just cool to see the translation on how Josh Allen has gotten better every year. And it was literally because of like all the work he's done and just like, just weird things on short, intermediate, long throws. And, it's kind of cool just to watch and how he talked about the transition and the work on mechanics is one thing, but to have mechanics and to use that in late game situations is honestly kind of insane and maniacal if you really start wrapping your head around that. Like, everything you've ever known in your whole life.
I've heard some stories about him in golf and how obsessive compulsive he is about like being perfect. And
really?
like I mean, like to the point where they get done playing at whatever, they go have drinks, it's midnight, 1 a.m. They all go to bed, they wake up, he's on the range at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
They play 18 holes. He's like, my driver's a little bit spinny, goes and changes the shaft on his driver, goes back to the range for 2 hours, plays 18 more holes, gets back, still is out there at night hitting balls again. I also think too that this was a weird year for Josh, right? Everything that happened in his personal life, and we can attest to being guys who are a little bit older now who know that because when you look back on it, you see, okay, I was struggling a little bit in that time because it was a weird time period for me, right?
Yeah.
I went through getting married, I went through having a child, I went through these certain steps, and when you're in the moment, you think that you have everything under control. You think that you are the man and you can mitigate everything and take care of it. But then 2 years later, you look back and you say, oh man, look where I am now. And look what I was going through back then. You don't really see it. And I think this has been a thing for Josh. Once the baby comes, which I don't know if it has yet or not. I know she's giving birth sometime this offseason. God bless him. I'm sure it's going to be a super athlete, which is great. America. But I do think it's going to be a little bit more of a weight off of his shoulders and he'll play a little bit more freely next year.
It's disgusting to think about, and I'm 99% sure he thinks about this a lot. That fumble he had versus Denver right before the half, where he was literally running with the ball for a first down, but instead of tucking it, he was holding it,
He's got
whatever.
Yeah.
Yep. And it literally drops out of his hand. Now, we could all agree that fumble most likely cost him the game. Then he sees they would have beat the Patriots. I don't care what anyone says, right? That fumble most likely at least cost him a Super Bowl appearance.
Yep.
So all that work, we're talking about all that maniacal stuff that he's obsessed about, and it was him not tucking the ball. I don't ever blame great athletes for physical mistakes. That was not a physical mistake.
That was mental.
That was mental, right?
Yep. And that was 13 seconds to go in the half, right? Like he literally fumbled it, they got it, and they kicked the field goal.
And it wasn't on a blind side hit. It was him running for a first down and just being cold. It slipped out of his hand.
Swinging the ball.
Yep. And it's just insane to think that fumble probably cost him a Super Bowl appearance. But yeah, I mean, they have James Cook, right? They have a bunch of big tight ends that could block. And, they don't have that number one receiver. But you and I have talked about this a lot. There's a salary cap in the NFL. You have to give and take. You can't have the best quarterback in the NFL, one of the best running backs in the NFL, a really good offensive line, and one of the best tight end tandems in the NFL, and have amazing receivers. It just doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah.
So they decided to invest in James Cook. And you know what? I remember I always thought James Cook was the lesser brother, to be honest. I didn't know.
That's because you're a Miami fan and you have PTSD about Dalvin Cook just absolutely just destroying you every single year.
And Dalvin Cook was such a beast, and he was a beast in the NFL as well. And he was like, I don't know. And when James Cook came to the NFL, I just always thought, wow, he's a good running back. It's obviously but he's not his brother. But when you watch him run, the guy just looks different, right? And he's special. So it's interesting to see because I don't think the Bills, again, can roll out with this receiving core. We agree on that, right? They're going to make a move. I don't know who it's for.
You can't have Josh Palmer, Brandon Cooks, Gabe Davis, this like a bunch of C-list celebrities that are out there trying to play wide receiver for you. And then you
Isn't
throw
that
in
crazy
Keon.
that Brandon Cooks, I remember talking about this during the playoffs. Brandon Cooks is their number one receiver. That's like insane at the time, like stats wise. He had a bunch of targets. I'm forgetting who the Bills played round one. And then, he almost had that catch, but he was he was Josh Allen's number one guy. Now, Buff and I have talked about this a lot. We always thought Stephon Diggs kind of hurt him a little bit because Josh Allen was just so tired of Diggs' antics that he was just feeding him the ball. You know what I mean? And not going through a lot of his reads and just throwing bombs at Diggs, and things were getting intercepted, incomplete, and he lost some of his efficiency. So I think now Josh Allen is that bona fide star where you could bring a number one receiver in, an A.J. Brown or somebody like that, and Josh Allen could be like, yo, I'm the guy here. Let's work together and let's.
What about Mike Evans?
That's another good one. Mike Evans. Man, that would be a good
I'm
fit,
just thinking
right?
about free agent wide receivers this year. You have like Mike Evans. I know Rashid Shaheed is out there as well, too, as a free agent wide receiver. Who was the other one I had? I got into this debate in a group chat the other day because somebody was comparing Mike Evans to DeAndre Hopkins. And I was getting frustrated by it because I'm like, I don't think they're that comparable. I think Mike Evans has been way more consistent and a better wide receiver. And it's crazy. It's crazy to say that because we know the highs of DeAndre Hopkins, right? We know one-handed catches. We know how great he was in Houston, moving on Tennessee and Baltimore and Kansas City. I mean, he's bounced around a little bit, but
at their complete best, they're pretty close. But the career-wise, you can't compare it.
But the consistency and career-wise, you got to give it to Mike.
Mike Evans is going to be hands down a first ballot Hall of Famer, and there's no doubt about it. And also, his run blocking and just his physical prowess, the way he just demoralizes cornerbacks because you literally just don't want any piece of that guy. No, that would be a very interesting fit for Buffalo.
What about a guy who stretches the field? I know we're about to get into another team in the NFC East here as we break it down in the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins who just lost Tyreek Hill.
Do you keep on saying NFC East, or are you saying AFC East?
I'm probably saying NFC East. I don't know.
Okay, either way. All right.
AFC East is what I'm meaning to say. I apologize.
No, yeah, but Shaheed. So Shaheed, I thought is an interesting one, but he's a guy that obviously that's not going to light the world on fire, right?
Yeah, and he's not like that number one that garners attention. I feel like I think that's part of the thing that makes him who he is. He's a gadget guy.
I think you're exactly right. And the thing is that we have seen him have big games with other have we seen I don't know enough about Shaheed. We all know, if you're not paying attention, he could take the roof. But yeah, if he's garnering that attention, can he beat you deep?
Right.
And also, I don't really know now that I think about it. I mean, we all know he's a great special teams guy, but does he have that quick twitch ability where you could just say, hike, get him on like a jailbreak screen or something, right? And can he catch it and go? Or is he one of those guys that he has to kind of get going, right?
I think he likes to get going. I think, this is one thing I was going to say about the James Cook and Dalvin Cook thing. They're a little bit different, right? And Shaheed is kind of like this as well, too, where he'll let his blocks get set up and then kind of duck behind him. And then once he gets that seam, he's gone. Where, and James Cook does that really, really well as well. Kind of duck behind an offensive lineman, hit a seam, all of a sudden, boom, hit 7 or 8 yards, and you don't even know how it happened. Now, Dalvin was a guy who would get the ball, and as soon as he saw he was shot out of a cannon and gone for 80 yards before you could touch him. So it's just a little bit of a different running style. I don't think either of them are incorrect or correct. They're just different styles. That's all.
No, yeah, I used to always say it. Picture this is when Dalvin Cook was like a top 3 fantasy draft pick. Picture you just grabbing the heaviest bowling ball and rolling it down the alley, and when the pins explode, that's how it was when Dalvin Cook hit the hole on a halfback dive. Right? It was just one of those.
His Florida State highlights are incredible. It's crazy to think he probably. I don't know. I mean, he might be the greatest running back in Florida State history.
His career was kind of cut short too, right? He didn't. I mean, obviously, a guy like Derrick Henry is very hard to come by, but Dalvin Cook did not sail into the sunset. I mean, he had
he had some hamstring issues at the end. That was the last Jimbo years that were kind of fizzling out as well too. So that was the beginning of the end at FSU of a crazy
Dude,
run that they had for a long time.
Dalvin Cook is 30 years old.
Oh yeah, and he's absolutely done. Like he'll never play
I
in the NFL
remember
again.
he was the backup in Dallas, right? Whatever, 2 years ago. And I remember thinking, man, he's washed up. Like, like he's not the same guy. And then I looked, I'm like, he's 28 years old.
Yeah.
It's sad. He just, whatever. I mean, it's very hard to be competitive in the NFL. And I'm sure if we saw the guy right now running drills, you'd be like, oh, he's going to be a number one. If you put him in the combine, you put him in the combine right now, he'd be a top 10 pick. It's just the way it works.
Well, it's funny too, right? Because like Dalvin Cook, Adrian Peterson, right? They were guys who you hit a hole, you're gone for 80. You jump cut, you're gone for 80, whatever it is. But AP was a little bit longer in the tooth, I feel like, in terms of his career and how long he was able to sustain that for. But it's tough to have home run speed for 5 or 6 years in the NFL. Just kind of that is what it is.
No, yeah, it's crazy to think. What yeah, that wraps up the Bills, I guess. But yeah, the Bills, they're gonna make some moves for sure. And it's just crazy to think because next year Patrick Mahomes will be hurt for a little bit, but it's just going to be the talk again. And someone is going to be really disappointed, right? With the Burrow, the Lamar Jackson, the Josh Allen. And at least Burrow had a little taste. But literally this time next year, it's going to be, does Josh Allen or Lamar have what it takes, right? One of them, only one of them will be in the Super Bowl, right? And I think
it's crazy to think if the Bengals just got it together a little bit. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Just because, look, they're like the only team in that division that has a returning head coach, right? And Zach Taylor. So everybody else is going through this turnover and turmoil and everything like that. And it's like you just stayed the same. You got Burrow, you still got Higgins, you still got Jamar. Just build the line out a little bit. It got a lot better toward the end of the year. Build the defense so that it's not just a gaping hole getting crushed every single day, and you can go win games.
I know, and like you still have like that defensive lineman that can anchor it, right? And I remember what the Chiefs did for all those. I mean, for that 6-year run or whatever, they literally had Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, and they just retooled that defense every year through the draft or whatever it was, and it's just kind of interesting to see that, there's just a lot of good quarterbacks in the AFC right now. And, someone's going to be disappointed.
Well, because they're not going
the Bills will be there.
They're not going to use the franchise tag on Trey Hendrickson. They just announced, I believe, yesterday, the day before. So Trey Hendrickson's going to be a free agent. He's going to be able to move on.
Fair enough.
Crazy to think. That'd be interesting. We'll get into that after, I guess, the last two teams of the AFC East, if you will.
Yeah. Miami Dolphins. This is, Tua pretty much kind of took them down, right? Like Tua gave them hope, and now Tua can't throw a football. Tyreek Hill's obviously going to be gone, or he is gone. And Waddle said he wanted out, but obviously the Dolphins hushed that up pretty quick. You have Waddle, you have Achane. They weren't a horrible team last year. And you and I talked about them. There were some close games where that whole season could have been different. And that was with Tua not being able to throw the ball over 25 yards.
Yeah.
So what do they do this year? I don't know what they do.
I know people are calling for Malik Willis down there as well, too. It's interesting. Obviously, you have the Hafley and also the Green Bay connection that they have with the new GM who they just hired down there as well, too. So they're really kind of going all in on that. Obviously, Hafley, who was head coach of Boston College before Bill O'Brien, who has, kind of been through it. He's a younger guy that he reminds you of. He got talked out of being the head coach of Boston College to come coach defense for Matt LaFleur, and now he's going to be moving on to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. So kind of a cool little path that he's taken here. And you would look at it and say, oh man, you're leaving being a head coach of Boston College to go be a DC for an NFL team. Like, is that a bump? Is that lateral? Like, how does that really work? But I think it worked out well for him because he was able to get experience and understand the NFL and get that little resume under his belt, and now he lands here. So I like Hafley. I always have. I've always thought he's a good X's and O's guy. He can scheme it up. Unfortunately, they got hammered with injuries last year, right? You give up so much and you lose Micah Parsons. That's really going to affect the defense and the way that you're able to do things. So it'll be interesting to see. This is going to be his thing going forward. He's going to be in lockstep with the GM. You know, the first draft. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? I'm going to assume it's going to be defense because they really need to focus on that. And I
If
feel
you're
like
the Dolphins, can you
they're going to try to make
almost
that their calling card, right? Like you're going to
yeah,
try to make defense your calling card. You're going to try to wear on teams. You're going to try to play the sun to your advantage. And you need something that's going to be able to travel. The one thing the Dolphins have done over and over again is they've always had something that doesn't travel well in all weather, which is an
yep,
offense. You know,
yep,
the Mike McDaniel thing is cool if you have a guy who can launch at 80 yards down the field. When you don't
no.
and you're running short crosses, it's very easy for people to creep up and, you know, to kind of mitigate that stuff. So I think that if I'm them, I just focus on trenches and defense, and then I let the offense take care of itself a couple years down the road. But you have to have something that travels. You can't lose every game in the cold over and over again every single year, especially when you're going to play at least 3 of them on the road in the cold every single year.
Yep. And watching that Mike McDaniel's offense sometimes, I mean, it was poetry in motion. And you kept on thinking as the years went on, and Tua, I'm convinced that the concussions from Tua has somehow hurt his core and his mechanics, and that's why he can't throw the ball anymore. I don't think it's like a direct shoulder issue with him. I think that somehow with the concussions and stuff, when Tua drops back and throws, it's different than it was 5 years ago. Because
There's some
I watched,
neurological link.
yeah, I watched some college throws that he made, like 50-yard darts, like line drive darts. Tua was never a top 15 strong arm quarterback in the NFL. I'm not saying that,
No.
but he was a guy that could at least get it down the field. And that Mike McDaniel's offense was at its best when you were worried about Tyreek Hill coming in for like a fake block and then him shooting out and Tua could stretch the field. Once teams found out that Tua couldn't stretch the field, it was all over for them, right? It's kind of sad because can you ride the Hurricanes kind of hype and almost tank this year and not get heavily criticized and then go get somebody really good next year at quarterback out of the draft? But then again, you're wasting Achane and Waddle for another year. So it's kind of tricky to say, but it's like, what do you do? What do you do if you're the Dolphins? You have Achane in his prime. Waddle is in his prime, but Waddle's only got a year or two left in his prime. It's just a real messy situation down there. It's a freaking mess down there. Like,
Yeah, it's interesting. So, because I was trying to remember this, I thought I saw something about this, and it says that concussions typically cause a 20% dip in brain energy levels. So, no matter what, like every time you get a concussion, you get hit, you're
yeah,
losing some kind of processing power and time.
yeah,
And at a position such as quarterback, those small quarter, half second decisions are what makes you successful and a failure. And so I just think it's very unfortunate for Tua the way that it's played out. And, you know, it kind of is what it is. I just don't think he processes at the same rate that he used to. And it'll be interesting to see the way that these other guys, you know, down the road, you know, whether it's Josh Allen or, you know, somebody we feel like has had a lot of concussions who maybe haven't been diagnosed at certain times as well, too. You know, does that end up coming into play farther on down the road?
and I
But
always say this on the concussion thing. You know, Harbaugh met with the Giants, the family, the GM. He loved what he heard, but he did not take that job until he talked to Jackson Dart, right? And I
yeah,
think that conversation, it was like supposedly it was a very long conversation. And I think that Harbaugh really needed to know, are you coachable, right? And it's not about like, you know, I don't mind the way Jackson Dart talked to the media and goes, no one's going to tell me how to play my game. But it's one thing when you already have a 35-yard run and you're trying to run over a safety in the first quarter, or you're putting your head down to try to get a touchdown on the 2-minute drill. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like in a meaningful game. So I think that back to what you were saying, it's all about these guys knowing when to go for it and knowing when to not go for it. I think Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have always been really good at that. And,
Yes.
you know, but
Great
also
at getting out of bounds.
But also, why are they so good at that? They are supreme athletes, right? Tua wasn't that guy where, he could easily just shake, shake, shake and run out of bounds. When
Yeah,
you're Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson and you're that fast and that big, you know, Josh Allen's size, Lamar Jackson's speed, of course it's easy to outrun a linebacker that runs a 4.740 when you run a 4.540, right?
right.
But
But if you
yeah,
don't run a 4.5 and now you're trying to outrun a guy who runs a 4.5 or a 4.6 and get to the
yeah,
sideline, it's a little bit tougher. You know, you see
and
Josh all the time with that little push off bounce out that creates separation on the stiff
exactly.
arm. Lamar's just quick enough to be able to just get it. And and move it. So
Yeah.
I agree. I think the Dolphins are going to hammer defense to start. I think that's going to be where they hang their hat. That's their bread and butter. That's who their head coach is. Figure out the offense at a later date and time.
Yeah,
And
and
you
like
ain't going to win this year, I don't think. So
I don't think they'll win
maybe
this
I'm
year.
wrong. But
No, and I kind of picked them. I thought they were going to be okay this year, but that was all amounted on if Tua could throw and Tua couldn't throw. But yeah, they're not that far off. They weren't a horrible team last year. The Jets have some hope.
yeah, I think Eric, what's going on, brother? Good to see you, man.
What's up,
I think the problem for the Jets and where their hope exits is at the head coaching position. And
Yeah.
I didn't understand the hire to begin with. I understand you're going to go to coordinator off of what you consider the best team in the NFL. But I just never understood the Aaron Glenn thing. It's like, how many times can you go to the well with a defensive coach and the same thing happens over and over again? We talked about insanity before. Definition of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I think if I'm them, I guess I keep. What's up, Buff?
What's up, Buff?
I think if I'm them, I'm sticking with Fields for another year. Depending on how that rolls. Do you maybe try to go get Kyler? I mean, you have Garrett Wilson on the outside. I think there's
Breece Hall, who's still very young. We did it.
He's a free agent.
He's a free agent this year.
Breece Hall's a free agent this year. So
you don't think he'll be back with the Jets? Guess not.
Them going and getting Allen, I thought was weird. What was it? Last year, the year before? It was like the precursor to we're not going to re-sign you, and then not offering him a contract, not negotiating, not tagging him, not doing anything. I feel like the writing might maybe on the wall. I thought Breece was legitimately good this year.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, unfortunately, just got hurt. And by the time he was ready to come back, he got hurt again. And then there was no point for him to come back after. And so that was a very, because he started off, I don't know if you remember this, he had four touchdowns in the first 5 games of the year.
Yeah.
You can say garbage time, whatever it was. He was producing.
He was getting a pile of targets.
And so so it was a tough thing, but I think Aaron Glenn will be the first coach fired this year. I do apologize, Gene. I don't know where you go. I think you got to tank it one more year and go back to the drawing board and find a quarterback in the draft next year and then start to build. If I was them, though, same thing. You just start building that defense, man. Defense travels everywhere. We've seen it. You figure out quarterback. You figure out maybe you hit on a wide receiver. Look at Seattle. Just draft defense, get some good running backs, build the line. You hit a little bit on Sam Darnold, and all of a sudden now you want to go win the Super Bowl. You never know what can happen in the NFL. So, but it all starts with the trenches, the defense. You got to start building through that.
I don't know why it's always in my head now where when you have a star receiver and you have like 4 to 5 years to capitalize with that star receiver.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's just like back to the drawing board, right? So, or running back. So the Jets had Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, which the talent is there. We know that. And they've had production. They're both young. But now Breece Hall is going to be gone. Garrett Wilson, you're going to waste him another year, right? Like, I just think a lot of these
He just re-signed. They just signed last year. So it's
know,
not like they made the decision to stay. They knew what they were getting into.
Yeah, I know. I think Garrett Wilson is that good too. But yeah, it's interesting to see.
Garrett Wilson might be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Like the fact that, like, if he had a quarterback, he would be up there with Jamar
Pickens.
And Dustin. And
to me, him and Pickens are exactly the same.
I would even say that Garrett Wilson might have better hands than George Pickens on some of the catches that we've seen. I mean, just an unbelievable dude. But
look who's throwing the football, right?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Who do you think, if you were to give an early prediction on who wins this division next year, who do you like?
I mean, I'm Bills all the way. I think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be an easy.
I'm almost to the point where I think Buffalo has a real strong chance, depending on how they work things next year, to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think with a new coach, if I had to take, like, for me, the top 2 AFC teams, I think next year could be like Texans and Bills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the Texans with that defense, and now they have a David Montgomery. They have a
Is he going to be the
plethora
complementary piece to Woody Marks, do you think? Was
of
that part of what that trade was?
Woody Marks is not the guy. I mean, he's on the he there are some really bad stats on Woody Marks on like, explosive runs and runs at the cup, but he was just a volume guy. But Montgomery should take a handle on that. Is Mixon done? I guess is Mixon. I don't
I
even
don't
know his
know.
contract situation.
It is crazy to think that Woody Marks, I think, left every single game that he played in with an injury.
Yeah, there was, and like
I
he's
think he was
literally
like 12 of 12, like 12 or 13 games. He left 13 games with an injury. So,
and I was listening to it a couple of days ago. He was ranked like out of 66 eligible running backs. It was like some ridiculous stat. He was like 64 out of 66. But since he had so much volume,
yeah.
he
I mean, even Chubb had volume at sometimes, and you would look at Chubb and you just be like, dude, this is not the Nick Chubb that I know.
This is
and
not
love.
the Nick Chubb.
It's not even close. I always wondered why they got rid of Dameon Pierce, but we always say this stuff, right? Of like, I can't believe they're doing this. It's like we're not there every day. We don't know what's going on. It's so easy to armchair quarterback, or pretend that we know geopolitics better than somebody else, and
I remember
pontificate that. It's like, no, you can't. Like, you don't.
Yeah. I remember when Pierce had that 1 year, it was the fantasy hype. So it was like July and August.
Mm-hmm.
I started buying into the hype. Then he like fell to me like in the 5th or 6th round. And then before the season, I'm like, Pierce is going to be a top 10 running back. And they just never got it. But it was like, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I remember, guy read so, but Doug Martin was another guy. Like where I drafted him and I just convinced and I was like, I would Google them every day and try to find these positive stories. After you draft these guys, sometimes you try to find these positive stories.
Any story.
Dameon Pierce was one of my guys where I was just like, I fell in love with them.
I used to always have that one guy every year. Buffalo always tell you this. It's the funniest thing. Like, it was like Brandon Lloyd, Cordarrelle Patterson. Like, back in the day, it was like Danny Amendola was like my guy on the Rams that like I hyped up for so long. And like, you fall in love with these guys. You watch tape, you do research. You're like, because obviously fantasy is all about when opportunity and skill meet at the exact correct point of data, And so when you see this stuff and you think that it's going to be able to extrapolate out, and it doesn't sometimes. It is what it is.
No, I know. It's funny.
You got to grin and bear it to refer to a former cartoon and newspaper, which is what they used to deliver in the mornings to your house to give you actually vetted, verified news.
I remember reading the box office. I mean, I remember the box scores and just going through. And then, it's just crazy times. Like the access to information was so slow.
Well, even like playing high school ball, right? Like you could see your name in the paper if you had like an RBI or whatever it was in the very back, and you'd flip through the very back. You'd be like, oh, there I am. Clip it, and like
we're waiting for the newspaper to get delivered.
That's it.
We talked about it right before the show, and then we got on the football, but I'm really excited for MLB this year, except for this one dynamic for sure. And it's going to get more exciting as the year goes on, but it's challenging balls and strikes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each team gets a challenge. You get 2 challenges. If you're right, you get to keep on challenging, right? So if you challenge one and you're right, you retain it right away. And it's going to be a pretty quick step. It's like a 12 camera shoot angle, and they have your height figured out by how tall you are before. They got all this stuff. And it's just going to be crazy to think how much we talk. I think how much we talk about balls and strikes and challenging them and the different dynamic it's going to bring to this game when it comes to the obvious situations. Let's just automatically assume we're talking playoff baseball, right?
Right.
So the obvious situation is that's a first and second, 2 outs, and Garrett Cole thinks it's strike 3, right? But Aaron Boone says it's an 0-2 count. It's the first inning. We're not wasting our challenge on this, right? Garrett Cole throws the next pitch. Bomb, 3-run home run. I'm interested to see what coaches, what managers give their players leeways to challenge, and what managers and which players don't have that power to challenge.
Yeah.
Because if, God forbid, you do waste your challenges early, it could be like detrimental. And I'm just interested to see how it's all going to play out. I think guys like Skeens, I think you talked about it, Garrett Cole, these guys would probably have carte blanche, right? You could just challenge whatever you want. That's just it. But there are some guys that a manager's going to be like, hey, in the regular season, you were 28% on your challenges. I'm not giving you that power in the playoffs, And it's going to be a 2 to 3 second thing, right? You're not going to this is a conversation that we've already had for 45 seconds, or I've had. You haven't talked yet. But this is going to be a look, and Aaron Boone's going to be like, no, or if you want, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see.
I think the cool thing, the way that they've done it and what I've seen, and I was mentioning this because I watched Skeens throw. It was like the first inning against the Braves a couple days ago, and the Braves challenged 3 calls in the first inning. All 3 they won as they were balls and they were called strikes, which pissed Skeens off. Like, it wasn't good for us at all. It was like it pissed him off, and he was like, "Oh, really?" And it like it switched something in his brain where he just was like, I don't care, it's spring training, I'm going as hard as I can now. I appreciate the amount of time that it takes. It's like challenging a call in tennis where they just immediately throw it up and they say you're correct or you're incorrect. There's no process time for me to question if somebody is trying to mess with it or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's important too. Like, sometimes you get these things where like the NBA will go and they'll send a call to, or even the NFL, they'll send a call somewhere and you'll be like, what is taking them so long? Like, this looks cut and dry. What are we trying to, justify here? I love how quick it is. It's like, it happens, boom, it happens. And it's either yay or nay.
Eric, you get 2 challenges. If you're right, you just retain it, and it does not cut off after a certain inning. I do think after the 9-inning game, if it's extra innings, you do get 1 or something like that, right? Maybe you get 1 per inning even. I don't know. But yeah, you get, after the extra innings, you do get some more. I love how the ACC did it in football this year, though. How you could hear them break everything down. And a lot of it was spotting the ball and things like that. But that was real interesting just to hear. And it was almost like when you're doing a proof in geometry back in the day, right? You got to prove that your answer is right. And so it was really cool to watch how the ACC actually showed that. Let me run another scenario by, which is kind of interesting with baseball. Let's say I'm using the Yankees and Garrett Cole. Let's just use Crochet and the Red Sox, right? So Crochet gets the first 2 batters out. He's at 6 pitches. The next 2 pitches are strike, 0-2 count. Crochet throws a ball. He thinks it's a strike. It's a ball. And the manager goes, hey, it's an 0-2 count. We're not going to mess with that, right? Crochet goes, okay, ends up, let's say, walking the guy somehow, right? Now Crochet walks the next guy. And let's say he walks the next guy, gets a bases loaded, and he gets out of the jam. But now it's a postseason game, and Crochet went from 9 pitches to 27 pitches, right? And the first thing the announcers are going to talk about, right? And the X World or whatever fan is going to be like, man, if they would have challenged that, they would have been right. And it would have been a 9-inning first inning instead of a 27 pitch first inning.
Well, and here's the problem, right? Hindsight can always be 2020, right? Like, we didn't have this opportunity before, so we don't really have a data or historical point to be able to go off of it and say this is what's going to happen. If I was the manager of a team, I would come out with pretty much a blanket set of rules, right? Yeah. Anything like we're not challenging it. If it's this count or this count, this situation, we're going to put this blanket set of rules up, and this is kind of what the guideline that we're going to go by. At the end of the day, I'm the manager. You said carte blanche. I have the ability to mitigate these rules that I say right here. And if I think something is wrong or incorrect, I will overrule them. But for the most part, these are the rules that we're going to go by. So if this fits into this, I don't want to hear shit from you, right? Yeah. Let's just keep it moving, move on to the next pitch. If you don't, all of a sudden, I think you're going to get into the situation where mentally, right, where a guy's going to be, and then that's a completely other beast that you have to control, especially on a baseball field. Do you know the answer to Eric's question here? Because I'm not 100% sure if it cuts off.
No, yeah. So I thought I answered it because he goes, "Can a World Series be decided on a?" Okay, so I guess he's asking. Yes, I think it can.
Like be 9th inning, extra innings.
Yeah, I think the extra innings thing you get more. You definitely get more challenges in extra innings, but yes, it can be challenged, and a third strike, the game could be over on a challenge call. Also, are they going to have is each team going to have one guy too, where literally right away you just be like, hey, you could challenge it? Like, are they going to have? I think it's going to be too quick to really do that.
I think you're going to get way less ejections this way. I think that there's going to be way less back and forth in terms of what's going on with an umpire and a batter, or even unless a guy is just pulling an Angel Hernandez and is just absolutely terrible the entire game, then I think that's one thing. But I think that we're going to get to a point where you're going to have less of that. It'll be less ejections, less time arguing back and forth. And eventually, when you get to a robot who's calling it, who are you arguing with? You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna turn around and kick the robot. Like, what's your recourse to be able to voice your opinion on that? So that'll be interesting to see as well too when that comes into fruition.
Is it going to evolve where just they're going to always use it and it's just going to be right away ball or strike, and the umpire is just going to be there to call ball or strike? I always thought it
plays the plate and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I always thought it was funny too when like a pitcher or a hitter argues the striker ball, mainly because the way the catcher's set up, so it looks like it, but they're flipping out. But we see on the TV that the umpire was exactly right. You know what I mean? And just, you got to think, right? The first thing that player does when he goes back into the locker room is he looks at that play and he's like, oh, fuck, I was an asshole. I'm going to apologize to that guy tomorrow. It's going to be real fun to watch. And I think I think it's going to be like what you said. There's going to be a blanket set of rules. But I do think for the stars, it's going to be, I always use the analogy when Rex Ryan said, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. If you're not on the plane by 9 a.m., we're leaving you here. Unless you're Darrell Revis, then we're going to wait. We're going to hold the plane for you, right?
Yeah. Volpe, you're not challenging anything.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Volpe, Volpe, but if you're Judge or Garrett Cole, you guys do whatever you want.
Yeah. Yep. Sorry, Volpe. We're not going there with you, bud.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think Jazz Chisholm will not have any power when it comes. I can just
see
a
tough one as well.
He's such an emotional guy, even though he's a great player, and I think he's going to have I could see him being a 30-30 guy this year. I think Jazz Chisholm's highly emotional. There are some, there's going to be some hard conversations that you're just going to be like, hey, you don't have any power.
Are you interested at all? Obviously, talking about baseball, WBC, I believe starts tomorrow. At 10:00 p.m. So World Baseball
it's a perfect time of the year to do it. First of all, I love how it's like right before the MLB season, kind of gets you all fired up. I'm gonna watch as it goes on, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Like, Aaron Judge tried to give a little rah-rah speech to start the USA's thing. It lacks some rah-rah. I'm not gonna lie.
He's just not that kind of guy.
He's not that guy. He's trying to be that guy, which I can appreciate. You're trying to step out of your comfort zone, but it wasn't great. But it should be fun to be able to watch. And obviously, we've been coming off a lot of, patriotic stuff with the Olympics and with hockey and stuff like that, too. So it's cool to be able to get in. And now we have baseball to kind of quench and satisfy our thirst that we've had for the past few weeks on that. So I think that's a cool thing as well, too. It does start, I believe, tomorrow at 10:00 that they have for the first game of the World Baseball Classic. So it should be fun. And I saw a lot of countries participating. I think they have the UK in there now as well. I think I saw Brazil that's in there as well. So a lot of teams that I don't really remember being a part of it before. Maybe that's just me not remembering, but they're in there now. So it should be fun.
What do you think about, really quick, NBA MVP? Because it looks like some guys like a SGA and Jokic might not qualify, right? So then I think Cade Cunningham is up there.
I'm gonna have to find this. Go ahead and riff for a minute. I gotta find these stats that I had from last week about this.
Yeah, so it looks like that Jokic and Cunningham, they might be right on the brink. Those guys are the two favorites to win the MVP, I think. Now, if those guys don't qualify, then it opens up, a little more of a larger, obviously, like, I know that a lot of people they like Cade Cunningham, and they say, if they're the number one seed, and he's just putting up big numbers.
So real quick, I have Cade Cunningham. This is the current MVP candidates with how many games they can miss before becoming ineligible. Cade has 11 games, and this was posted last week. And I don't
Yeah.
think anybody's missed games since then. I think Shea may have missed 1 or 2 since then.
Yeah.
So do keep that in mind. But it was 11 for Cade, 6 for Shea. Luka can only miss 5 going forward. Wembayama can only miss 4, and Jokic can only miss 1. Do you like this new rule where it's 65 games you need to be able to qualify
Oh,
for
yeah.
MVP?
I love it. It just kind of keeps them honest, and it keeps them, if they care about that.
Right.
And that's not like an all-star Pro Bowl appearance. I mean, winning the MVP means a lot, and I think it's important to. I think they should maybe even raise the minimum a little bit, make it 70 games. I don't know.
It's kind of tougher though when you have like NBA Cup and other stuff like that. And I apologize, my kids are homesick. They're going absolutely berserk right now. I don't know if you can hear them in the background.
You can barely hear it. We'll wrap it up quick. I can be honest with you.
It's just like it just sounds like a wolf that's injured right now. That's fighting for its life in a trap somewhere. Might have to gnaw its leg off, be able to get out of it, but neither here nor there. Go ahead.
I think as a Knicks fan, I'm excited how we beat the Spurs this weekend.
Yeah.
It was a big win. We beat them by 20. We beat them at home. I think the Knicks this year have kind of folded against good competition, and we've beaten everybody we should have beaten. And it was good to see the Spurs, who were at the time the hottest team in the NBA, 11-game winning streak. Now they were ice cold from 3, but to win a game at home versus the best team in the NBA at that juncture, by 20, it was good. I think that the NBA is so wide open. I think there's 6 to 8 teams that could win it. Pistons, Cavs, Knicks, Spurs, OKC, Nuggets. I mean, it's really, really, truly wide open.
You mentioned MVP, and there's a couple of different things that I do want to point out as well, too. If you go to Hard Rock Bet right now and you look at it, Shea is minus 260 for MVP, Jokic plus 500. We just mentioned the games that they have that they cannot miss to be able to play this. And also, if it's really not that close coming down the stretch, is Shea really going to be pushing toward the very end to play if he's not healthy and to try to possibly get an MVP? I don't know. Cade at plus 800 is crazy to me. The other person who's crazy to me right now, too, is Jalen Brunson. You mentioned the Knicks at what is it, plus 5,000? You can get Jalen Brunson at right now. If you look at some of the records that they have with some guys, a lot of these teams that are really good, they're even really good when these MVP candidates are not playing. The Knicks are the complete opposite. So they're the one team that's up there that is actually in the top of their conference that literally Jalen Brunson means everything to their team. And so I think there will be, especially being in New York, I think it'll get more steam the closer we get to the end of the year, the more clutch Jalen Brunson continues to be over and over again for this Knicks team.
Put $20 on it. Put $20 on it. You win $1,000.
Yeah, if they finish, top 2, top 3 in the East, or even, God forbid, let's say they finish, first in the East somehow. They go on a good run. I think there's going to be people that are clamoring for that to happen as well, too. So just my 2 cents. I don't think it's a bad sprinkle if you're looking for some value there. But obviously, Cade at plus 800 seems ridiculous that it's there as well, too.
Yeah, it's going to be a good number. It's going to be real interesting to see if the Celtics, if they can come back with Jason Tatum healthy he's supposedly he's playing 5-on-5.
Yeah.
That team, Boston's going to be real scary.
How does that go? Because Jalen's been the guy all year and he's played so great and he's been incredible. Now that you enter back into Tatum, where Brown was always the number 2 and Tatum was the number 1, and now these roles are reversed. And how do you get into that? I think having a guy like Vooch there and a big, like if you remember when they were at their height, it was when Kristaps could stretch the floor and open it up for the cutters and open it up for Derek White and Peyton Pritchard to be able to get to the rim without having a big floating around there blocking shots. I think it's a big thing for them. They haven't really had it this year because they haven't had Al Horford. They haven't had Kristaps Porzingis. I think adding Vooch is a huge piece for them.
I agree, because obviously Vooch a little bit of a liability on the defensive end, but he could just it's another guy you cannot leave open. Great jumper, great offensive center. And it's kind of right because you got to make the right basketball play. And there are some players that the game slows down in crunch time. Like Anthony Edwards, I think is that guy. I've watched him play the last 10 clutch moments he's had. He hasn't always taken a shot. He always makes the right decision. Doesn't mean the guy's going to make it, but there are so many times I've seen Anthony Edwards in a game-winning situation attract the triple team, and he just literally gives it to a wide open guy. And he always makes the right basketball play. Sometimes I think LeBron James, it speeds up for him. Obviously, and I think LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. But I think Michael Jordan, it obviously really slowed down for him. I unfortunately think with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, it speeds up for them a little bit. And that's maybe where like a Pritchard or a Derek White can kind of come in and try to, obviously Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum will be the guys that make the play. But
Right.
I don't know if I want the ball in their hands with 8 seconds to go. Give it to them with a second to go and just make the shot. You know what I mean?
It's been crazy to see the
I knew Eric was gonna hit me on that LeBron greatest player.
Is it okay to say that MJ is the best player of all time, and that LeBron James is maybe the greatest player of all time?
Yeah, you could argue that.
I think Mike is the best player that we've ever seen in the NBA in terms of the way he dominated his level of intensity, but most accomplished, and has all the titles and has all the longevity cases and causes and everything like that. You kind of got to give the nod to LeBron. What I was going to say is that when you hear some of these guys talk about former players, about Peyton Pritchard, and the level that he's playing at as well too, and the way that he has come in and just absolutely been a rocket from the moment that he stepped on the court there in Boston. I was listening to, I think it was it T or was it Grant Williams? It was somebody like that. They were talking about they would have a lockout day. Everybody could show up to the gym except for Peyton Pritchard. He had to not come to the gym. And what he would do is he would go to some open court somewhere, like outside, and go run somewhere else. Like they're just like, he won't leave the gym. He's a gym rat. That's just who he is. He loves the game of basketball. And I think you mentioned that Vooch might be a little bit deficient defensively. I think a lot of times when we've seen that, it's when he hasn't had great perimeter defense around him. And so now he's liable for trying to stop somebody downhill and protecting the rim, which is what he's not great at. He is a great, pick and pop. He has great feel around the rim. He's able to keep a guy in front of him on defense. What is he not? He's not an athletic guy who's going to protect the rim. So it's tough. If you have good wing protection for yourself, you can mitigate the fact that Vooch is not going to be that great because nobody's getting to the rim anyway. So
I think Boston could be in the NBA final. Also, breaking news: the Jets just franchise tagged Breece Hall.
Good for them.
Yeah. No, I think Boston could be a sleeper. I think it's crazy to say this, but Jason Tatum's injury might have helped this team in the long run.
Yeah.
Because it got Pritchard out of the shell.
And I love that take, actually.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown, there were like some whispers of MVP talks with him, right? Just the way he has been carrying this team. And now with Vooch, this team is a lot better than they were last year. But we'll wrap it up. But yeah, it was a great show, buddy. Thanks for joining.
I appreciate you having me on, man. It's always fun to sit here and chop it up. I feel like we just started talking and it's been an hour and 23 minutes. So just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. Shout out to Buff for allowing me to take over the chair for a day as well too. Appreciate you and love you, bro.
No, yeah, everything's good there. But yeah, man, it was fun. This is kind of the dog days. We got Bay Hill coming up.
I got to work all weekend. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it out at all. Are you going out at all?
I'm going to find a way to go. I think me and my dad are going to go maybe on Saturday. I'm off on Saturday. I might take off on a Sunday. I want to go. Bay Hill is like, it's not a major, but it's real close to one now. The prize pool's jacked. And this is the warm-up for Masters, right? Almost every star, I think, is going to be there because they all took off. Isn't that kind of sad that the Honda Classic isn't the Honda Classic anymore? Now, really, not many people go to that, right? But it is good for Orlando and Bay Hill because it just brings everybody to Orlando.
Yeah, it's tough, too, because you also have the players coming up in a couple weeks as well. So it's like guys are trying to tune up. It's the Florida Swing. If you're going to go to any of the Florida Swing, right, you're probably going to skip like the Honda Classic and the Cognizant, and you're going to stick to the players in the Bay Hill. I mean, they're elevated events. They're worth a lot of money. You want to focus on those.
Also,
I'll give you my –
go. At your work, you're usually seeing – we won't even say the hotel, but I'm sure a couple golfers will be staying there this week, right?
For sure. Yeah. I had a nice chance to take care of a couple nice guys and their families last year. And they were really cool. And we got a chance to go out. And was it last year or the year before? I don't remember, whatever it was. But we got a chance to go out and have a great time. No, I was going to say, if you're looking for a kind of a flyer and a guy who traditionally has played well here at Bay Hill, a guy who has finished top 30 in every event this year so far on the PGA Tour, A guy who the driver is finding the fairway and he's hitting his long irons really well. Colin Morikawa. You're looking at plus 2,500 right now to be able to take him at. So if you're looking for a long shot and a guy to win, it's a guy who I kind of have circled and pegged. Scotty hasn't been himself lately. I know he plays well here. He hasn't been himself. Rory is traditionally not really ramping up at this time as well. I think Colin and Hideki Matsuyama are kind of in that little spot right now where they're playing well and they have a chance to come out and do something. I don't mind if you want to sprinkle in some Victor Hovland. Yeah, $100 plays 2,500. So, you know.
Was it last year where with like 8 holes to go? I mean, the leaderboard was one of the coolest leaderboards I've ever seen. I mean, it was just
crazy.
Scheffler, McIlroy, Hovland. I mean, it was just stars just loading up the leaderboard. It was really cool to watch.
Yeah. Should be a fun. It's always a fun week, man. I always say Bay Hill's turned into a thing now in Orlando. It's like a place to be seen. You know what I mean? It's not really like nobody's. It's not like the Waste Management, but it's not. You're not there to watch golf. You're there to you're there to market, politics, shake hands, kiss babies, see your homies that you haven't seen in a while, and kind of keep it moving, enjoy some cocktails. So
it is kind of crazy because where me and you live, it's like a 3-mile straight shot. Obviously, with the roads, we got to take a little different route, 15, 20 minutes.
If
but
we
if
could just hop
you
over
just
the lake,
a line, we could walk to Bay Hill.
Yeah, if we could just hop over the lake, we'd be right there. But
but all right, great show.
Listen, it was a pleasure. I appreciate you, Gene. Thank you for producing everything as well too. Be great. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you for having me on.
Appreciate it. Bye.